All right, everybody, welcome back to Founders Korner. In today's episode, I have Jonathan with me. He is an expert in video marketing and actually has his own company for video production. And I'm very excited to talk to him about where marketing could be and his biggest challenges as a founder himself. So let's welcome Jonathan. Jonathan, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. Okay, so I always like to ask because, I always like to know the history, the past, like how you got where you are. So how did you get where you are today?
It was a bit of a surprise actually getting into this industry in the first place. I originally got into video by filming and editing parkour videos. I used to compete in parkour years ago, and to get sponsors, you had to be putting out a lot of content and be making videos and stuff like that to kind of showcase your skills. So I started doing videos of that and editing them.
So you were a lone wolf, like you were doing your own thing, your own video, your own editing. Okay, cool.
I had friends helping out as I went, but I had an interest in video since I was a kid. I think an uncle or something like that bought me a camcorder when I was 6.
Yep. That's how it starts.
kind of went from there. But yeah, the parkour is when I really started focusing on the editing and the production and stuff. And then my parents have a grocery store, so I started doing videos for them, for their marketing, for online content predominantly. Okay. And then I had a couple other local businesses ask if I could do it for them, and I never really thought about it before. And I said, well, yeah, sure. And then that's kind of more or less how Symbol Syndication was born.
Okay, cool. And then how long have you been doing this now? So that sounds like years of experience right there.
Yeah, so I registered the company in 2014.
Okay, all right. So almost 10 years.
Yeah, I guess it's been a long time now. Started growing it then, and then in 2017, worked on expanding from Lethbridge to Calgary.
Okay. So you started originally in southern Alberta and then moved into Calgary.
Yeah.
Okay. And how's so being in production and doing so many, video for marketing for businesses, what are you seeing in terms of trends with video? Because I can tell you honestly, like our posts, when we're doing Instagram posts, for example, video gets, everyone just rather do anything video rather than still pictures, right?
Yeah, definitely online with platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. Video is the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. People don't really like to read stuff anymore. No. People are hardly even looking at pictures anymore.
Well, hence YouTube is the second most searched, right, engine? Because of the fact that no one wants to read. It's just, show me the video. How do I do it?
Yeah. And they're owned by Google. So, no, video is definitely predominant that way. I think we're seeing a bit of a shift for the last couple of years. There was a lot of demand for kind of leading up to COVID. There was a lot of demand for vlog style content, I think, thanks to Gary Vee.
Yep.
And now I think we're seeing more of a shift over to a lot more educational content.
Like this.
And a lot of the stuff we're being hired to do is educational content, training videos, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So what was the biggest challenge you got to experience when you were building out this business, like your own business?
There's been a couple different things. Originally, the biggest challenge was scaling clientele, finding the most efficient way to bring in new clients. And then I feel like we got well enough established, and our SEO and Google AdWords strategy are solid. So then it kind of turned from that to staffing, and then staffing's been a challenge kind of all along the way, predominantly in
I think that's a challenge no
roles.
Matter what.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I always say in this podcast is the fact that I only just heard about you recently, and I've seen your work, and it's actually amazing. But to me, you're an overnight success, right? I didn't even know you had this thing for 8 years. So I always tell people it takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
And so what was the biggest struggle that you had in that 8 years? Because that is a very, it's a very consistent growth that you had, right?
Yeah. So I'll give a little backstory to kind of how the struggle arose. When I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I guess, one of the first books I read was The 4-Hour Workweek.
4-Hour Workweek.
So throughout my progression
I think everybody reads that. It's either that one or the $100 startup.
Yeah, I read
that one too. Well. Yeah, like those are the two. How do I start a business without needing to invest too much into it? Yeah, that's a good. Those are two good books. I've read both.
So a lot of my focus kind of along the way was, how do I delegate so that I'm not the bottleneck of this business? And we scaled. I think it was 2016, 2017. Sorry, 2018, 2019. We had about 10 employees, and
that was a tough year to grow too, especially in Calgary.
Yeah, I hired a manager, and it wasn't a good fit, and kind of a lot of stuff fell by the wayside, and then I ended up having to hire someone else. I have someone incredible now, but overcoming the challenge of delegating management was by far the most difficult and expensive, and the learning curve is expensive, and training people is difficult. That was definitely the hardest thing, but third time's the charm, and the guy I got now is great. So
I think one of the biggest things is like, you hire slowly but fire quickly.
Yeah,
I think that's probably like the best advice I can give anybody in the startup world too, right? It's take your time with the hiring, because it really does have to match what you really need, and then fire as quickly as you possibly can, because it's it's expensive to keep people around just to keep them around.
For sure. And the right person makes such a big difference.
Exactly. So, I love that you said hiring is a struggle, because I've always said that. It's not easy. So, like, your challenge was finding people. Why? Why was it so hard to find people?
So for filming,
was it like a culture problem? Was it like a role problem?
It's a weird set of skills for this position. Hiring editors is really easy, and there's a lot of people, very talented people looking for jobs. Same thing with videographers. But to hire somebody that had sales skills to deal with the incoming business and could run a camera, as well as stay organized and manage some staff to a degree. You
just defined an entrepreneur.
Yeah, those three things are, thankfully he doesn't have to manage stuff on the financial side. The guy I found, he'll be the first to admit that that's what he's really bad at. So perfect, and that's what I want to take care of anyways. I don't want to delegate that. But finding someone with sales skills who's kind of like a creative, or good with a camera, those two things don't often come together.
No, that's a challenge right on its own, right?
Yeah.
So why did you decide to work with them? Was it just because of the fit, or was it because this is your third time?
I posted it on Facebook, and he replied as a joke.
I love that. Perfect.
And like, I was looking to hire an editor, and he replied, and he was like, well, I don't have a computer I can edit on, and I don't really like editing, but I'll apply for the job. And I was like,
did you know him?
Yeah,
you guys? Okay, yeah, okay.
Actually, he hired me for a video job a long time ago, and he was a production manager for Hard Knocks Fighting.
Oh, cool.
So it was a joke. But then my manager at the time decided to switch to another position, and I reached out to Jeremy. I was like, well, you're probably not a great fit for an editor, but you might actually be a good fit for a manager. And it ended
like on operations side, yeah.
He ended up being a really good fit. So
okay, and then how did you manage with the editing side? Because that's one of the biggest aspects of your business.
Yeah,
right?
we've always had really good guys that do that.
Okay, okay. So he's not actually doing the editing. Okay, got it. And so he's just running the operation.
Filming either. He does some of it.
Okay,
but yeah, we've always had good editors. That's thankfully an easy thing to find, and they don't have to be like local either necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. You got Upworks.
Main tour in Lethbridge. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then for the biggest challenge that you found aside from hiring, what else would you say was your biggest challenge or failure that you learned the most from? Because we all have it. I mean, I always tell people, being an entrepreneur is like almost being lucky on a regular basis, right? You just have to put yourself in a situation where you increase the probability of success for your business. Yeah. So I always tell people, like, you have to put yourself out there. You really got to go. You got to fail to win.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I present it. So, what was your biggest win or failure?
I would say offering too many services.
That's a trap.
a lot of companies expand. They're like, we're missing revenue here.
Yeah.
These occasional customers could use this. Like web design was the big one.
And, that's a completely different avenue.
Yeah, and so we offered we had social media management, web design, SEO, and video, and like maybe one or two other things.
Is that because your clients were coming to you as like a marketing leg? Okay, got it.
Exactly, yeah. Especially in Lethbridge.
Yeah.
They prefer if just one company does everything mediocrely for a good price than
how big is Lethbridge, just for everybody?
100,000 people.
Yeah, okay. So it's a small town slash
10% of the size of Calgary.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, once we really honed in on what we were good at and eliminated those other services, it worked a lot better.
Okay. Yeah. So you stuck to your niche, you stuck to your focus. Are you planning to expand now?
No. We do video and SEO.
How quickly did you try to get into the second tier, like the marketing aspect of web design?
2 years of starting.
Okay, so it was like ambitious.
It was and like we got.
Did you like have a team that you had set up, like because that's a big leap too? I'm just curious how you got.
When we first started, I think there was within the first couple of years, I was working with 2 or 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like on the website side.
We had one person doing like web. We had a person that was filming and editing, and then another person doing some of the social media stuff.
Gotcha.
So, kind of, yeah.
Okay. That was one of your failures. What was one of your biggest wins?
Moving to Calgary, expanding to a bigger center. Yeah, that was huge. Really opened up the doors to bigger clients. Like we went from working with like small coffee shops to within a couple of years working with like Microsoft and stuff like that. So
cool.
Good.
Okay.
Like, the change in clientele was good, and then realizing too what kind of clients we were going after, figuring out what price point we needed to be at to not like we didn't want to be one of those unaffordable companies that do video. Like there's some of those because a lot of them are just like don't have any work for a couple months until they get one of those big jobs.
Right.
So we can kind of really ironing out what that price point should be so that we are affordable still for small businesses, but our quality was where big businesses would hire us.
Gotcha.
And fine-tuning that was huge. And then kind of from there, a lot of organic growth happened.
Good. And then you founded that when you were coming from Lethbridge, that's where you were, like when you came from to Calgary, the focus was, hey, we have the experience. Here's our experience. We did it in this market. I mean, you don't even have to say the market because it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's video production.
The portfolio is everything. Like even when I'm hiring, I'll never look at a college, like what someone did for post-second or anything.
I don't.
I'll just be like, send me your resume. If you have a good show reel, like that's going to be the biggest thing.
So it's funny you say resume because like I never pay attention to resumes. I think I read a stat. It was like 58% of resumes are lies, right? Like because I look at these resumes and I'm like, you can read through it, and I genuinely do read through them.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask questions, not specific, but like almost general, just to kind of get an idea. And you can tell they just plugged in words that we were looking for.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? They could not really truly answer the question of like, for example, let's say, well, I'm not going to name anybody's name, but it was like a designer, and they said, oh yeah, I have 5 years of UX and UI design experience. And I was just kind of like, I was looking through their portfolio, and they did have beautiful UI. Like it looked really good. I don't know if you know what UI is, but user interface and user experience. But user experience is one of those things where it's like, it comes from experience. Yeah. Right? You actually truly have to have built multiple web applications or apps or whatever to really understand where to use specific interfaces and when not to use them.
Yeah.
And when I was doing an interview with them, I asked them a very simple question about UX, but it wasn't specific, right? I was just kind of trying to see if what they wrote on their resume was like true.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I haven't done that yet." I was like, "Oof, you wrote that on your resume? You did that? You know what I mean?" So I don't really pay attention to resume either, which is funny because I think I think resumes are dead now. No?
How do you? I don't know.
I hire based on culture. I know what your next question was going to be. I hire them based on their capabilities, actually showing me their capabilities and culture fit.
But how do you vet the first 100 people that apply?
Oh, that's easy. I don't get 100 people to
okay. So I guess for your industry, devs are so in demand, right? You probably don't get that.
So devs are okay. That's a good question. So we do get, that's the one area where we get a lot of applications, and there's a lot of crap that comes from it.
Okay.
Not to say they're crap. It just doesn't work for us. And the way we weed them out is, two things. We do look for the languages if they're on their resume. You'd be surprised how many people do not do the research and they're just like, yeah, here's my general resume, and they send it to 100 people. So let's say 50% of those go away. And then once they come in, we really focus on problem solving.
Okay. That's huge.
Yeah, so we'll do like the initial call, which is the general stuff. Where are you trying to be in 5 years, blah, blah, blah. 50% get booted from that.
Okay.
And then you're left with like 10, maybe 15. And then I would say 80% fail at the problem solving.
Yeah.
And we usually cut the interview short. So that's how we do it.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. It takes time. But that's why I say I always take, like, my focus is always like, take your time in hiring.
Yeah. No,
because a bad hire is very expensive.
Yeah. Well, you spend all that time training them and working them into the culture before they're probably like highly effective. Right?
Exactly. Like we've had it. We've had a bad culture or a bad hire. We got rid of him after 2 months, like very quickly, because he was actually quite toxic.
Oh yeah.
Right. He was like the guy that was like egoistic, kind of like, oh well, like I can do so much more. Why am I here? Mm-hmm. It's like, you're out. Like we had to immediately throw him out, but we invested so much in him.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of sucked in that way.
I think I've been fortunate that I don't think I've ever had a hire that's been like toxic.
That's
people that are bad at their job.
Yes. Yeah. What makes them bad at their job, you think? Is it because we don't give them enough tools or capabilities? Like, I always look at it from a perspective, and this is my opinion, so I would love to hear yours. But my opinion is I have to be able to, at least if I'm going to let someone go, be able to say I tried everything in terms of giving them what they need to do their best work. Mm-hmm. And if they truly cannot do it, that's their own thing, and they're truly not fit for the job.
I think it depends a little bit on the position, the expectation of the position. In terms of video, I could probably teach anybody to operate a camera.
Fair.
If I'm hiring
it's scary
them
at first, but yeah, you're right.
With the expectation that they already have those skills, especially when it comes to editing, like for someone to like learn After Effects,
like
from
even
scratch.
Framing and stuff like that, because like you kind of have to know that stuff. I guess it's fundamentals, right?
Yeah, and I think you could teach a lot of those fundamentals. And I think a really big thing is with hiring is people need to really have a passion to be continuously learning.
Yeah. My motto is 1% better every day.
Yeah, that's great. And I think if people don't have an interest in getting better, then it's going to be tough.
Right.
But yeah, and then providing the right coaching and education. But in my industry, a lot of it, like, thankfully we have a big pool of talent to pull from. Mm-hmm. Most of the basic, like, fundamental skills that we need in, whether it's editing, whether it's color grading, titles, cutting, audio, framing, stuff like that, should already be established before we hire them.
Oh, okay. So you're not training from like absolute scratch.
Almost never.
Yeah. That would be devastating.
It's just like there's so many people with the skills already. It doesn't really make sense to do that.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenge I find with the software industry is the fact that it's really hard to find people with experience in software.
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Do they I imagine a lot of them get snapped up by big tech companies if they're good, hey?
I don't know if they get snapped up. Like there's a personality type that goes for the big companies, like the corporate, right? So those guys will naturally go that way. But there's also the types that don't like corporate enterprise level. Like we just had a recent hire for marketing, and she hates enterprise. Like she could easily work for like Microsoft, Google, or any of them, but she hates the enterprise level of bureaucracy, let's call it.
Oh yeah,
right.
I can see that.
So she hates it. So she doesn't go near it. So we got lucky on that. But she's from Vancouver, right? So you kind of have to become that hybrid model if you want to be software, because if you're in a particularly small city, like let's say Lethbridge, there's no way I can find everybody I need in Lethbridge. It would be impossible. I can't even do that here.
Is there anything that you kind of need, that anything that has to be in person?
None.
That's
I would say the only thing that really helps with in person is problem solving.
Yeah.
When you're in person, you're able to kind of like be like, hey, like, what do you think of this? Like, I'm kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. I find that when you're working from home, that's a very big challenge for developers specifically to go out of their way to try to ask other developers. It's easy when they're in front of them, but it's not so easy when they're not in front of them.
How do you set metrics for productivity? Like how do you set the metrics people should be hitting?
In terms of development?
Yeah.
Or like in general?
Yeah, in general, because like I know with that remote work, there's been so many jobs over COVID that have gone remote, but you have a lot of government jobs now that are 30-40% of the productivity that they were at before, and we're still paying them the same.
And you know what's funny? Government, they're already at 30%. So by going 30%, they're like at 10% now.
Yeah, exactly. So
not to be bashing anyone in government, but
land titles.
Yeah, like
land titles.
Exactly. Right. I just find government is so old school in everything they do. They basically have trained their people to work less. I don't know how that's even possible. But yeah, when they went home, like I know a bunch of people that work for the federal government. And she had a really fun story, and I kind of laughed and cried at the same time, because she was like, we had a presentation, or they had a presentation, and this lady comes onto the presentation, the one that's doing the presentation on behalf of the government, right? And she sits there and goes, so I'm forced to be here, and I don't want to be here, and she just kind of like shits on it, right? And you're kind of like, well, I hope she got fired, because I would immediately fire someone based on that.
No
like, are
kidding.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
She's like, no, because guess what? They're part of what do you call it? The union.
Yeah.
Right? They can't touch her. They can only give her like a warning or stern, slap on the wrist kind of a concept.
Yeah.
I'm blown away. That's why they work 10%. Why you cannot fire them?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Same.
You almost need to pull a Twitter Elon Musk style in the government. Just like fire everybody and start from
75% of the people. Yeah.
Like, you got to torch it before you rebuild it.
Yeah. My girlfriend was a teacher, and she said like some of the older, like more senior teachers could just do whatever they want and they wouldn't get fired. They could be like, do no work, but because of the union and like how long they've been there, they just won't get fired.
They won't get fired. It's impossible because they're part of the government. That's the problem, right? Same with the Alberta, like health. Same idea. I mean, the U.S. doesn't have this problem because it's privatized. Yeah. Right. But in Alberta, we spend so much money in so many weird ways, like not even in a productive way. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like the government of like the healthcare was trying to bring on a new feature. I won't go into details because I don't want to again, I have a friend there. Yeah. And they were trying to bring on this new application, whereas they already had paid for this other application that had that application built into it. So they had already paid for what they were trying to go into RFP, which is request for proposal. Yeah. And so this person, my friend, was like, we have this feature. It already exists. Like, we've paid for it. Let's implement that. And they were like, no, you gotta take it to RFP. She's like, why? So later we find out, they're friends with the guys that have that application. So it's crazy.
Got to spend $50 million on an app that can be made in a weekend.
Well, yeah, that was a whole. So I wrote a blog on that on LinkedIn. Yeah, I wrote a blog on that because it's people kind of took that way out of proportion because a bunch of people copied it. Yeah, and were like, look. I copied
it's gonna be easier to copy than to create.
Absolutely. It's the easiest thing to do. That's why we tell our clients all the time, we're like, it's easy to copy something. It's hard to build it. Yeah. And that number also included all the marketing and all the back-end infrastructure. They didn't copy the back-end infrastructure. Because the whole point of ArriveCam was you say when you're arriving and it goes to their call center and their call center knows when to call you.
Did they ever figure out where a lot of that money went? Because it looked like a lot of it was unaccounted for because only the company that built it only got a tiny portion.
Yeah, exactly. The one that actually built it, I think it was $5 million, and then the rest was just for the program. So who knows what it is? It could be marketing, it could be the call center itself. I don't know. So I don't know. I don't care. I don't really get into the politics too much.
So circling back. So how do you set expectations for productivity for people at home?
So our KPIs are very basic. It's literally focused around like how many tickets you're able to solve in a week, right? And how long you spend, because we track the time just to know how long each ticket takes on average.
Okay.
So that's with our developers. That's kind of a lot easier because you can see and feel the work they're doing. Same with marketing, to be honest. Like almost every role, because of how small we are, you can feel everybody's work. Like you can tell when someone's not working. Yeah. Right? And so I think because of that, because of the openness, and we keep everything open as well. We're very like open book kind of concept.
Awesome.
Because of that, I believe that's why everyone kind of keeps up to their own KPIs and just kind of like keeping productivity high, because you can immediately tell.
Yeah.
I know one week there was I literally messaged the person. I was like, hey, what's wrong? Because I can feel it. Like you immediately can tell when, something is wrong, or, hey, your productivity kind of dropped. It could be me being just observant, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it hasn't been a problem. And I think it's because of the fact that we kind of like keep track of, not like in a obsessive way, but more of a, hey, when do you think you'll have that done? Because this other team is kind of waiting on you.
I'm sure the way you hire too is going to encourage you to have people that will be more productive as well. And
one of the biggest thing is entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
When I look at people, that's one of the culture fits for us is like, that's why I always tell our startups and founders, focus on culture. Because if you bring like-minded people and then share them your vision, they'll naturally drive to that vision themselves. If they're full-time, I find part-time and contractors are completely different. Yeah. They're less obligated to the vision and the end goal.
Yeah, contractors, that's a tough one.
Yeah, the contractors are just there.
Yeah.
They're just physically there to do what you tell them to do. And you have to understand that though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't. When they're like hiring contractors, they're like, why don't you care enough? It's like they're contractors.
Yeah. Well, no one's ever going to care as much as the owner, right?
And like full-time employees, in my opinion. Like full-time employees, you have a benefit to care. Because if you care, your company thrives, you grow with that company, especially at a startup.
Yeah.
In a big corporation, probably less so, because you're just a number.
Yeah.
We always say this, startups, you hire generalists, you grow the company, and then start hiring specialists. Right? Once you become a specialist, you don't really know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
You're there to specifically do that thing you're hired for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I found hiring generalists has been extremely valuable. Like people that can problem solve, like you said, and that can be adaptable, and if they need to learn other skills.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's huge, right? Yeah. The generalist that's their job, is to always get better. I think generalists also are like lifetime learners. Yeah. They kind of have to be if you want to be a generalist, in my opinion, right? It's not easy to be a generalist. And so most of the time what will happen is they'll try very hard. They'll get their thing done. And if they can't, they'll go and find out how to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas a specialist is like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Like, don't ask me to do that. I don't know how to do it. So they get kind of like deer in the headlights kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of just like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Don't ask me to do that.
Yeah. I guess, both have their place.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So that's how we hire. That's kind of how we focus on. I mean, like I said, later on, we're going to have to start hiring specialists. But I think just knowing where you're at is the key.
Yeah.
Right? Are you big enough like to get a specialist? Do you have a specialist?
I would say like our editor's a specialist.
Are they full-time or contractors?
Full-time. He never picks up a camera. He just edits.
They just pump out videos, right?
Yeah. We send them footage, send them instructions. This is what the kind of thing we're looking for, and they just run with it. So
it's kind of funny too with editors. I always notice you can tell who's doing it because they all have their own little style,
for sure,
flair, I'll call it.
Yeah,
right. Because our developers are the same. All right. So if you were to give advice for any like startup that's looking into like doing their own video marketing or content, what's the market trend right now? Like what's happening in the industry where it would benefit them the most?
Yeah, so most companies come to us and hire us to do one short video.
Okay.
Kind of like a commercial style promo video. And I think that's kind of been the norm for probably the last 20 years. I would definitely recommend against that. I like the money and, hire us to do that. But a way better approach would be hire us for a couple days, shoot as many videos as possible, do like Q&A videos, do promo videos, do short social media videos, do funny videos, come up with a plan for a bunch of videos, different lengths. You can do longer ones for YouTube to embed in blogs, things like that, short ones for TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and
try to get more of a spread among all of them.
Batch it out, and then you'll have video content to release for 3 to 6 months, and you can reuse it, and it's just, you get a lot more bang for your buck.
Is that feasible for a startup?
Absolutely.
To do? Okay.
Yeah, like you could probably,
you don't have to give pricing because every industry, every city is different. But I'm just curious because startups typically don't have that much capital, especially in marketing when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, but I think honestly that's your best bang for your buck.
It's your stretch.
Yeah, and you can repurpose that video content into so many different things. Like you can get blog articles out of long form video content, like transcribe it. And it works for SEO content. I think doing mass amounts of content is going to be way better bang for your buck than doing a single short video.
Okay, awesome. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
What's your company's website, just so everybody knows in case they want to check it out?
It's symbolsyndication.com or symbolsyn.com, SYMBOLSYN as in Nancy.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, founders, if you have any question for Jonathan, I'm sure he would love to answer it, especially when it comes to market trend. He loves that stuff when it comes to video marketing. Otherwise, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Also, make sure you guys check out our Founders Academy. We do have a workshop coming up for startups. It's free, January 11th, online. You're gonna love it. If you're thinking about your idea and you want to go out there and actually execute on that idea, this workshop really gives you a nice pathway forward for that. Until next time, like, subscribe. Can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Koridor out.